Mary Rose Dalton Sullivan, born July 22nd, 1921. We're celebrating her 100th birthday. We'll be looking at her family tree, which we realize goes back to 1690. If you look at the top on her father's side, that's John Chafe, and on the bottom, her mother's side, we can go back to Bartholomew Hayes to 1831. Bartholomew's marriage certificate from 1856 tells us he was from Ireland. He was married in Wales to Mary Healy, who is also from Ireland. Bartholomew was from Skibbereen, where the potato famine hit very hard in 1846-47, which is probably when he came to Wales. The 1871 census shows him on Glebe Street in Penarth, Wales. Bartholomew, Mary, and looks like there were 9 residents at that street. These are 3 streets, Glebe, Plassey, and Ludlow, that we find them living on when we look at the census from 1871 to 1891. They're all within a stone's throw from each other. This is the 1881 census on Ludlow Street, and it shows Bart and Mary with their children, and Daniel is who we're going to be looking at, who was our next of kin. This is a house of the Ludlow Street where they lived back in 1881. The 1891 census has him on Plassey Street. There's no Daniel there. He's our next of kin. He's no longer at home, but Bartholomew, John, Hannah, and Mary all lived there. This is a current photo of Plassey Street. If you look at the photo on the right, you might find some family pictures that show that same kind of architecture. Bartholomew died on October 29th in 1895 in Wales with his son John present. The 1901 census shows them on Woodland Road. There's no Bartholomew. John is now the head of the household, living with his mother and some nieces and nephews. This is a photo of Mary Healy Hayes and John circa 1901. Notice the window on the left of them. Notice the doorway. Again, this is Woodland Street, and this is the same Woodland Street taken today from Google Maps. Look on the right, there's the doorway, and there is the window and the wall in front. Hasn't changed much. This is a photo circa 1901 of the Hayes family with Mary Healy Hayes, again, son John in the background, and that could be Maud in the background because she was on the census as a niece living with them. This is Mary Healy Hayes, again born in 1833, who married Bartholomew and had a son Daniel. This is information on Daniel, who was Mom's grandfather. He was born in 1861. And this comes from a church in Perth. This is their marriage certificate. Daniel Hayes married Anne Jeffcock on July 28, 1892. And this was from Eckington in Sheffield. This is Anne Jeffcock, Mom's grandmother. She was born in 1869, died in 1928. This is that church they were married in, the Immaculate Conception Church. Mom visited in 1991. That's a photo of her in the bottom with her Aunt Margaret Hayes. The 1901 census shows Daniel living with his family in Sheffield, and you see my grandmother Anne is listed as a 7-year-old with her siblings. This is a note Mom wrote to me regarding her family tree on the Chafe side, her father's side. She was very excited about being able to go back that far. And this is Teresa Chafe, again born in 1857 and married Michael Dalton. There's where you have the Chafes and the Daltons marrying. Again, the family tree goes all the way back to 1690. Teresa's father was James, whose father was John, whose father was Edward, whose father was the original John from 1690, who came here from England. He came here, if you look at the Teresa Chafe and look at the top, James Chafe was born in 1812. in Petty Harbor, Newfoundland. Petty Harbor is where most of the chiefs settled. This is a picture of Petty Harbor today. So getting closer to home, this is where Anne Hayes married John Dalton in 1920. Anne was here, had migrated from Sheffield, and her husband had migrated from Newfoundland. This is the 1930 census showing them living on Perrin Street. Mary, Barbara, Anne, and John. This is the Perrin Street house today, taken from Google Maps. This is the 1938 Girls Latin High School yearbook. All three Daltons graduated the same year, Anne, Barbara, and Mary. Mary was a yearbook editor, and she left a box of aspirin as a personal donation to next year's editor of the yearbook. Here she is living, again, still on Perrin Street in the 30s. Notice the building across the street from her. Notice the two doorways and the windows. Again, this is the exact same address across the street from 11 Perrin Street. From Google Maps, you see the two doors and you see the windows. It hasn't changed. 1941, Mom worked as a medical lab technician. This is her work colleagues. She's in the back. She wrote on the back of it, 1941 antitoxin lab. And this is the marriage of Mary Dalton to William Sullivan in October of 1943. And paying homage to her father-in-law, this is William Sullivan, born in Cork, moved to Roxbury, Massachusetts. Marion Sullivan was her mother-in-law, born in Aughrim, Galway, Ireland, and also moved to Roxbury, Massachusetts. And here we have the firstborn son, William James Sullivan.
That's where she put the diapers, and everything was out, she put outdoors that she couldn't, and she'd hang things on the line. But,
Now, where did she come from?
Newfoundland.
Oh.
My father and
Were they always in Mansfield?
my father and his cousin Jack. My father was John, he was Jack. Lived in the area, across the street on the other side, with his mother and his two sisters. So there was family there. And Jack and my father were the first ones that came up here. They knew somebody up here or something, I don't know.
To Boston.
Yeah, and this guy had a chocolate factory out in either Mansfield or Foxborough, right around there. And the two of them went to work there. Lowney's, it was quite a, well known, it was like Schraff's at one time. And they brought their families up here. My father brought his mother and his sister, his father, and his brother.
To where?
To Mansfield.
Oh.
So they finally all were here.
I wonder how they chose Mansfield. Somebody must.
Because somebody knew somebody who was
Yeah.
opening a factory, and
Yeah.
they wanted help. And because
His father was born here, wasn't he? No, he was born in Canada too.
Newfoundland. And Newfoundland was Newfoundland. It wasn't part of Canada.
Oh.
It became part of Canada in the 40s.
Oh, I didn't know
My father never believed it. He would never admit it.
that. Still became Canadian.
Yeah, it was Newfoundland.
They all spoke English, right? Or French?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But they only had fishing down there. That's all you have to know. It's the most deserted place you ever want to be. You never want to go there for a.
We went there for
No,
vacation.
you
Was that
didn't.
Nova Scotia?
That was Nova Scotia. But Barbara and I went all the way up,
Yeah.
and it's built up now. And like Father Florence was born in St. John's, Newfoundland. All his family, there was 9 of them.
Were they all fishermen then?
They all left. And then Ann was here, Jim was here, Arthur Barnes was in Canada. He had 2 or 3 brothers in Toronto.
That's all your grandmother's family.
Yeah.
On your father's side.
They got the kids, I don't know where they are now.
You have a lot of cousins all over.
Oh, someplace. But I know I got the genealogy and the draw
Yeah,
there.
that goes way back.
That's when we were all idiots or illegal aliens. See, they didn't have to have any papers to come up here, or they didn't have to get my father became a citizen though, right away, I think, right when he came. And then when when he married my mother, she became automatically a citizen
Because she married an American.
because she married an American.
It was really Newfoundland.